So we're talking about The Last of Us Part 2 today, and I am going to ruin everything. So spoilers, spoilers, all of the spoilers. I will ruin this for you. So not going to waste any time here. Joel is dead. Not only is he just dead, he was physically overpowered by a woman.
You stupid old man.
What follows can pretty much be summed up by that old dude in Wolverine.
You know what happens to men who go look at the blood? They find it.
Fans were really upset. Fans were distraught. Fans were
You're gonna fucking die!
traumatized. The conservative right officially labelled it woke propaganda and tried to retcon previous installments into not being canon. They tried to boycott, they tried to cancel. When none of that succeeded, they just resorted to good old-fashioned death threats. People lost their absolute minds, but they were fans. For people to be this upset, this antagonized, they had to have been fans from the beginning. They had to be lured in. Today we're going to talk about how The Last of Us drew in a surprisingly large conservative fan base and then pissed all of them off. So what is The Last of Us? It was a PlayStation 3 game released in like 2013 that came out to wide critical praise. Everyone really liked it. Where do politics and conservatives and all this nonsense come into it? Well, if you look at the themes within the game a little bit closely, you realise it's kind of a utopia for a certain mindset of people. Every woman in the game is either murdered by a man or needs to be escorted or picked up or saved. The only people who really survive and do well in this game are homesteaders or thieves and looters, people who take things with brutal force. We're shown that it's a world where to really succeed you need to go off, avoid cities at all costs, shun the government and all other forms of outside help. You need to be a man and live on your own. It's a world where if you have a gun and the capacity to use violence for whatever you want, you can have it. Even a woman, even a family, even a compound, no matter what, it's yours. You just need to take it. And there are groups of people out there who, to this, it sounds like an ideal scenario. We play as the Great White Hope, this giant hulking white dude who goes around bonking people with bricks and sticks while protecting the virtues of this young girl. Every other woman is in the way or nagging or dead. It doesn't look too good for them. The strongest example I could come up with was Joel's brother's wife. When we first encounter her, she points a gun at you and is really strong and protective of her compound, but only 5 minutes later, she has become a 90s sitcom housewife nagging her husband about the things he's going to do. And everyone in the game seems to know this and just has an "oh god, here we go" type of mentality towards it. Then there's the protagonist himself. Throughout the game, he is shown to be suspicious of almost every single other person and their motives.
Son of a bitch, he's smart.
He is stoic. He refuses to talk about his past. None of those things are important aside from what we are doing here and now.
You don't bring up Tess. Ever.
And eventually, after a while, he warms up to Ellie and he gets the chance to become the father he never got to be. Because of this, he sees fit to A, teach Ellie on how to deal with emotional stress.
Things happen and we move on.
It's just...
That's enough.
Which is that you don't. And he also gets to imprint onto her what a young girl should be, refusing to give her a firearm to protect herself.
And you just hang back like I told you to.
Even though she was training with the military for quite some time before him and has killed people before. So to recap, we have homesteading, we have paranoia, we have grizzly white father dudes in positions of power, we have oppressing and controlling women, and a world where anything can be yours as long as you're willing to take it from someone else. This sounds like the rantings of the alt-right. This sounds like Andrew Tate or Ben Shapiro. It sounds perfect. Fast forward a few years, and the same fans that were praising this utopian version of the future, where strong white men rule everything with an iron fist, and they were crying for the developers' blood. What happened? What could have possibly happened? What tragedy has befallen this game? So yeah, Joel's dead. That was a big one. And as I said, not only was Joel killed, he was killed by Abby. Slowly, painfully. Neil Druckmann's words was something to the effect of, it had to be excruciating and disgusting and humiliating. The main sticking point here though is that it was done by a woman. And not just any woman though. I'm looking into the fucking thing, not the lens. I'm sorry. Abby is a character whose entire design bucks the trend that female game characters need to justify their existence with some sort of sexual gratuity. She is just fucking shredded. It turns out that one of the people that Joel murdered at the end of the first game was Abby's father.
If it was me, I'd want you to do the surgery.
And she has spent her time training and getting stronger for the one day that she will find Joel.
I found Joel's brother.
This introduces a really strange mechanic that no one really likes at all. Consequences for your own actions. Especially consequences for your own actions in the past. Perhaps Joel is not as good as we thought. In The Last of Us Part 2, we start off playing as Ellie. She's a bit older, she's a bit wiser, she's got some cool tattoos, she is a person. A few days after Joel's murdered, Ellie and her partner Dina go off to find Joel's killers and Tommy, Joel's brother, who has also gone off seeking revenge.
Bring my dumbass husband home in one piece, please.
During this, they do a whole bunch of questionable shit, but the kicker is about halfway through, we are forced to play as Abby, wherein the idea of consequences comes up once again. Consequences for our own actions. We see the people that Ellie murdered and killed, but we see them as humans. You see, there's something really dirty lying within this game that I absolutely love. It's built around manipulation. It's why so many people stopped playing the moment that Joel died. It's why even more people stopped playing when they were forced to play as Abby, because we all knew what was going to happen. They were going to humanize the bad guys and maybe make the humans look like bad guys. It's why every NPC has a name in this game.
Amir! Move in!
A name that their friends will scream out after you've killed them.
Amir!
Even the dogs. It's why you were allowed, if not encouraged, to play fetch with Bear.
Okay, one more time. Yeah, you're so fast.
You are manipulated into feeling something that you don't want to feel. You don't want to feel guilt. You don't want to feel complicit. You don't want to feel culpable. You want to play a video game. Another thing that really disturbed the conservatives about this game was the presence of trans characters or gender fluid people. That's just a no-no to them. They don't exist at all. And yet, the character of Lev is one of the main characters of the game.
Come on, those were your fucking people. You're my people.
Not to mention the lesbian romance between Ellie and Dina. These things are strictly off topic, and if they are to be shown, they are to be shown as ungodly and of no benefit to anyone. They are supposed to be the ills, the downfall of society. One of the major complaints that people post about online regarding this game was the existence of plot holes, which I found really interesting. We spent almost all of our time with either Ellie or Abby. There wasn't really any room, in my personal opinion, for there to be any plot holes. But I did some digging anyway. The ones I found that really made sense to me also didn't bear any weight on the story at all. Joel playing a Pearl Jam song that wasn't on the air just yet, or the model of the surgeon, Abby's father, looking and sounding differently to how he did in the first game. This one, I just chalk up to the fact that this wasn't a very clearly organised story from 2013. In fact, I'm pretty sure Naughty Dog were just hoping that this game would get off the ground when compared to its male version of Lara Croft, and once again its awesome game about jumping marsupials. It kind of sticks out. Everything else I saw can unfortunately be explained by some really unsexy normal human failures. The developers did a lot of work in this game to make their characters feel human, not necessarily gamified. They get tricked, they misspeak, they trip, they stumble, they make mistakes. It's designed to make you feel more anxious while playing. If you're an omnipotent god, you've got no reason to be fearful of the next encounter. Other points include Joel and Tommy helping a group of strangers to begin with,
Y'all should come back with us, restock before you head out.
and then giving them their full names.
Tommy, this is my brother.
Joe.
Joel is supposed to be stoic and pragmatic and does anything he needs to survive. He wouldn't do such a thing. For the past couple of years, he's been living in a town that has snow fights and movie nights. The town is prospering. It makes sense for them to get comfortable and trust people now. That's part of Joel's character arc. He learned to trust people. It's character growth. The Jackson compound doesn't need a fucking John Wick. They need a fat old dude to play Santa at Christmas. The ones that stuck out to me the most, though, were the ones regarding decisions made by Joel and Ellie. Because they do a lot of stuff in the game that doesn't make any sense. A lot of stuff that's could be classified as stupid. A lot of stuff that people classify as plot holes. These too can be explained away pretty easily with trauma. And before everyone sticks up their arms and starts waving around, the entire game is built around trauma from the get-go. Joel is a broken man who never recovered from the trauma of having his daughter killed in his arms. In an interview with the Washington Post, the creators of the game talk at length about Ellie's trauma, the things that happened in the first game. The events she went through left her as a different person, and now the only person she's ever known as a father has been brutally murdered in front of her. And on that note as well, we have Tommy, Joel's brother, his own flesh and blood, was in that room too. He was rendered completely helpless, and he walked out of there, and Joel didn't. And then we get to Abby. Abby's entire character is based around unresolved trauma. Her father was murdered, and she has set her entire life around finding her father's killers. As I said, she is training her body, spending all of her spare time either killing people or trying to track down the person that did the same to her father, to the point where it's directly affecting her relationships with other people. Her and her partner are no longer intimate after that instance. That is a legitimate real-world problem. That is a thing that happens. It's not there for no reason. And speaking of things that aren't there for no reason, it's this sound. When I first saw this, I thought nothing of it. It's a cool sound effect. It's a flashbang from COD or whatever. It's just there to heighten tension. But there's no reason for it to be there. There was no gunshot set off in the room. There was no real reason for this ringing to just start and just continue escalating. And then it happened again. This is what's called subjective tinnitus, and it happens to people with PTSD. That is the sound of damaging memories being formed or called upon. So everyone's favourite power fantasy got turned into a trauma simulator. So the conservative right took to Twitter to attack anyone who had anything to do with the development of this game. First up was Neil Druckmann, the lead director of the game. They just threw some just horrendous anti-Semitic shit at him. Then there was Laura Bailey, who did the mocap and the voice acting for Abby, the woman who murdered Joel. And lastly, there was Jocelyn Metler, who just did the facial modeling for Abby. In 2017, this woman is still receiving death threats as of 2023. They even started a petition online to get the game boycotted. It didn't take. You see, if there's one thing that the conservative right really likes, it's a clear delineation between good and evil, between right and wrong. In reality, in the real world, it is rarely, if ever, that simple. There are always going to be some things that are objectively wrong and taboo. In what circumstances are these actions permitted? When do we give them a pass? There's still discourses taking place today about the idea of who did what wrong. Was Abby a bad person? Was Abby wholly and solely in the wrong? Are Ellie and Joel's actions in the previous game represented as being wrong? Are they bad? And none of those things are unequivocally true. That's the whole point. It's all shades of grey. Everyone did shitty stuff. Murder full stop is bad. And you've done plenty of it. So did the bad guys. So did the good guys. It all just depends on where you're standing. This is a tricky subject, especially when related to things like global politics and war. People commit atrocities on both sides, but we all know one of them is good and one of them is bad, one of them is right and one of them is wrong. But what happens when you stand in the middle and look at both sides? What happens when everyone is humanized? What happens when everyone is given a backstory? That's an upsetting thought. These are difficult and murky questions to be asking. It's far too complicated for a simplistic point of view of good guy kill bad guy, which is what people signed up to play. At the end of the day, in 2013, a certain viewpoint was espoused. A series of beliefs and values were established. And in 2020, those ideas were all thrown out the window. In fact, you were asked to reevaluate all of them and examine them all again carefully. This is not a task for everybody. Some people just want to kill bad guys. It's a fascinating insight into how we, as a society, can become so invested in make-believe. How a story that makes you examine right and wrong can lead to real-world death threats, and an interesting moment in time when everyone's favourite father figure was murdered by a golf club. Fuck you, Joel. I'm your daddy now.